Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Heal with Grace. I'm your host, Grace, and I'm here to guide you on this wonderful journey of self discovery, growth, and resiliency. Today's episode is one that speaks to the heart of what it means to truly heal. We're going to talk about why setbacks are actually a part of this journey and why healing is not linear. If you've been in this work for a while or just been on your own journey or been in therapy, self development, you've heard that phrase probably healing isn't linear. And it can provide some comfort when we hear that and understand it. So, we're going to really dive into it to understand why. And then what do you do when you do feel like you're stuck and you have setbacks and you feel like you failed, or you have those moments of like, but why is this so hard? Or like, I don't want to keep doing this. We're going to talk about how to help yourself and what to do. The thing is that we often set high expectations for our healing journeys and we think that we should follow it straight, like it's an upward path. But the truth is that healing is full of twists and turns and detours, and that's okay. So, we're going to normalize the ups and downs, help you build resiliency, and remind you that every step, even the difficult ones, brings growth and wisdom. So, take a deep breath, settle in, and let's dive in. What does healing isn't linear really mean? Let's start by exploring what it truly means to say that. Many of us imagine that healing is a straight road from pain to peace. But in reality, it looks more like a winding path with bumps and unexpected turns, and sometimes even roadblocks, and sometimes even falling back to where we thought we never would be again. And I'll say something about that is that that's actually never true. You can never be backwards. You can never be where you were before. There might have be moments where you feel like that. You have familiar feelings or sensations or experiences, but you are not the same person you were yesterday, last week, last month, last year, 5 years, 10 years ago. You can't be. You can only go forward. Even those two steps back don't erase the progress that you've made. Healing is often compared to, if you've heard the analogy of peeling the onion. Each layer you peel back reveals something deeper. And sometimes addressing one wound, one of those layers, brings up another to the surface. So sometimes we think we're opening one layer and it's like, whoop, five of them come off. It can feel frustrating, but it's all part of the process of uncovering and understanding, integrating our experiences. And the other side of that too is that it can feel so hard to peel back one layer. It feels like we're stuck and we're resistant and we just like can't get there. But resistance is part of the journey too. Your brain and your nervous system, like the being of who you are loves you. Your nervous system loves you and wants to protect you. And so it's going to protect you from what it thinks is dangerous. And what it deems as dangerous is what we're trying to tell it that it's not. But those layers are a threat to your nervous system. And so we have a lot of really great ways to protect ourselves by resisting. So resisting um, a new skill, resisting feeling sadness or guilt or anger. And so you're going to see that time and time again. And a great analogy too is that think of it like nature, right? So seasons change, tides ebb and flow, and growth happens in cycles. Just because you're experiencing a winter in your healing journey doesn't mean spring isn't coming. We need that winter oftentimes to get to the spring, right? Think of it as like when you're in the depths of your pain or you feel like you've gone backwards, you feel like you've had setbacks. There's a reason for that. There's a true reason, even if it doesn't make sense to you in this moment and you feel like you've been doing everything you need to be doing, but there are lessons in it. You are not somewhere that you can't handle. And I hesitate saying that sometimes because it can feel kind of dismissing, right? Like I've had people tell me that, like, you're in a place that you can handle because spirit, universe, God, whatever you believe would never give you something you can't handle. And there are sometimes I'd be so angry at that, be like, F you. Like this is horrible. I can't handle this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. And the you can see things when you come out of it, right? Like hindsight is 2020. Um, and I've got to say, I even though was angry at some of those times, I do feel that. I do acknowledge it and I do believe it, even when we don't understand it. But that's part of the process too. Not understanding something, sitting in that, being in the resistance, feeling it, recognizing it, trying to understand it, that's how we move through it, right? I've said the analogy a million times on here. We have to be in the woods to get out of them. We can't go around it. So, when healing is not linear, it means that your journey is uniquely yours. And with that, comparison is not going to serve you at all. So stop looking at someone next to you or online or in front of you or behind you or around you, whatever. And just like stop looking at other people's journeys and focus on yours. Keep leaning into trusting that you know things will get better and that you will find your way through this, not someone else's way. Now, I totally understand like hearing and listening to videos or stories of people getting out of the place that you've been in can be really helpful, right? It helps us expand our mind to know that it's possible. So those are helpful. Just watch the sensations of your body. If you keep watching or hearing these videos of like people getting better and it really lights you up and you're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I can do that too." Then great. Keep watching and listening, but if you start to listen to those and you notice you feeling resentment, you're feeling like, why can they do it, but I can't? And oh my gosh, I'm never going to get better, but they did. That's where I would look at that and I would start to recognize, okay, oof, what's coming up here? Obviously, yeah, there's some resentment, there's some lack of trust. I don't really believe that this is possible. So, really look at that a little bit more, be with it, and then don't watch so many of those videos. Like, be really boundaried with what you watch and what you take in terms of content. I also want you to recognize that moments of regression are opportunities for deeper learning, right? I just kind of said this. You may not see it in this moment, but what comes into your life, what happens in your life, you're meant to live in this lifetime. And so when you can lean into that and you can see or try to see, right? Look for, explore, like, what is it that I'm needing to learn right now? And usually what you need to learn is because you've had experiences of something that's not there, right? So, for instance, especially when you deal with chronic pain and illness, a lot of times what we need to learn is how to take care of ourselves on a deep, deep level and stop judging and dismissing and treating ourselves like shit. And when you deal with chronic pain and illness, you are forced to do that. You are forced in a big way to really look at yourself and your life and like how you're handling it. So I was just talking to a client about this the other day where um in the beginning, she came in and she was like, I don't understand why this is happening. Like, I understand I'm buying into the nervous system. Like, I get that, there's a mind body component to where I am. And by the way, she has long COVID. She's in bed. And she was like, but I don't have any trauma in my life. I don't have any like difficulties. I don't know. I feel like I've been fine. Um, and usually when people say that, I just kind of let us go on our journey to then discover because I know there's more there. Your mind is just blocking it. And what we realized over time is that actually she's dismissed taking care of herself in so many ways. She'll go like days on focusing on one thing and forget to eat sometimes or rest or take care of herself or sleep or, some of the basics. And this illness is really making her look at that. And so when there's these times, these deep times of turmoil or pain or fatigue or whatever your symptoms are, and you feel like you've made progress, but all of a sudden you have a crash or you have an increase in pain, it's really asking you to dig deeper to see, okay, where have you dismissed yourself? What's going on here? Or what are some experiences that are coming up that you haven't really felt or looked at? Another thing that I think that when we come back, like when we have setbacks, in a way. And to be honest, I don't even really like that term setback, because I don't think that it really fits like what it is. I don't think we ever go backwards, ever. We're just moving forwards and it looks different from different days, weeks, months. We just need to be in our own space at certain times, meaning sometimes that's going to be a lot of progress and forward movement and feeling good. And sometimes our bodies are going to be like, whoa, hold on, like let's slow down here, and we're not ready to get rid of this pain yet. And what some people might call that as a setback, I just say it is what it is. It's just a phase. It's just what you're going through. Oftentimes when you're in this, it can feel like nothing is ever good again. Nothing has gone well. You're always going to be in this, like, right? Like your mental health takes a huge toll when it feels like you've made progress and then all of a sudden you don't, or you have some kind of crash. You have some kind of like place where it feels like you're not moving forward. And what I'll say to that is that don't believe anything you're thinking in those times. They are not truth. They are just coming from a sense or fear of failure. They're coming from that core belief that you're not enough, that nothing's ever going to go well. Anything that you have, any thoughts you have that are all or nothing, I'm never going to get better. This sucks. Like, what's going on? What's wrong? Why can't I do this? What is happening? All those like all or nothing kind of statements, don't listen to them. They are not truth. And what actually we need to look at is the opposite. What has gone well? It's hard to realize those in this moment, but I need you to celebrate every small victory, no matter how significant it may seem, when you have these places where you're not doing so well. Because when we can recognize what has gone well in the past, whether that's one day, one moment, a pain-free day, your brain will start to orient towards that. So we want to bring in more of those moments. Like, you know what? I just had a wonderful week or a wonderful weekend. I'm going to celebrate that even in this day of pain. And that's totally okay. It's not perfect. It's not linear. So let's talk a little bit more about why setbacks happen. So when they're happening, why do they feel so discouraging? Let's talk about a few reasons why. One, more often than not, a big main reason why setbacks happen is that we are pushed outside our window of tolerance. Our window of tolerance is the emotional zone, if you will, in which we feel safe and regulated. When we're pushed outside of it due to stress, trauma reminders, overwhelming situations, we can become dysregulated. And this might look like shutting down emotionally, feeling anxious, falling back into old coping mechanisms, having high pain days, things like that, because your nervous system says, whoa, hold on, hold on, hold on. All of this stuff that's happening, this trigger, this stress, this trauma reminder, it's too much. So we're going to send you these symptoms. We're going to send you these old coping mechanisms because that's what we know as normal. And we're going to keep you where you're supposed to be. So when you do some of this work, what we are doing is pushing yourself a little bit outside your window of tolerance, because we kind of have to expand that, but we can't control it all the time, right? And things happen in life and we live in reality. And sometimes we're pushed too far outside. And so then we get some symptoms. And this is my way, this is when you might say you're in a setback or a crash or something like that. But the good news is that with self-awareness and support, we can gradually expand our window of tolerance over time. So when you're in this place of this like crash, this fatigue, old coping mechanisms coming back, really what I want you to recognize is that you just pushed a little bit too far, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You are not a failure. You are not doing it wrong. Seriously, you didn't do anything wrong. Your nervous system's just trying to protect you. So what you do during this time is give yourself all the self-compassion, and see if you can recognize what triggered you there. What activated all this? Was there some belief? Was there some overwhelm? What fear was going on? And then start to work with that if it feels safe to do so. What usually happens is that underneath there is some unresolved layers of pain. And this is because healing doesn't happen at once. Like our life is a healing journey. And sometimes I think that we think we've moved on only to find old wounds resurfacing when we least expect it. This doesn't mean you failed. It means you're getting the chance to go deeper and heal on a new level. So this has happened to me time and time again where I truly, if you've listened to my earlier episodes, especially explaining last year, 2024, um, I really did before that year. I thought I was good. Thought I was like quote unquote healed. In terms of the physical illness sense, right? Like physical pain, physical illness, things like that, that where I was truly in a really detrimental state. And I mean, I've gotten pretty far with that, but there's always something that comes up where life's like, you need to go a little bit deeper. You're not healed. You're not, you know, packaged up, ready to go. And that's just because I think that what happens is it humbles me. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm human. I'm not perfect, right? Like things happen and my nervous system tries to protect me by sending me some symptoms, shutting me down for a little bit because it thinks I can't handle whatever's going on. When in fact, I can. I have skills to do so. And then I use them and get some support and work on the fear and the emotional pain and understand what that layer is. Usually, what happens is there's some kind of external triggers, right? So, because life doesn't stop while we heal, things like stress at work, relationships, unexpected life changes can bring up old wounds. An argument, a familiar place, or even a particular scent can trigger emotions you thought were behind you. So when these things happen, they're not setbacks, right? It's just your mind's way of saying, hey, let's work through this now. Yeah, let's look at this layer. Or, oh, there was that reminder again. And what we have to do is remind our nervous system, remind our bodies that we're not there, right? Because when we're triggered, when we're activated, what's happening is there's a familiar feeling, there's a familiar sensation or experience that's happening, and our mind attaches a meaning to it. It says, oh, yeah, I remember this thing. This is not safe. This is not okay. Remember when that happened 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, 20, 30, 50 years ago? Yeah, that was bad. So it thinks that it's in that moment. But instead, we have to say, hey, I'm right here. I'm not there anymore. And I'm sending you all the compassion and love that we need. Okay? That's what happens when external triggers come up, emotional triggers. When it feels like you just can't deal, it's okay to rest as well. Resting isn't quitting, it's refueling. So, all these things, I have to say this, all of these things that I'm talking about, where I'm saying give yourself compassion, look at the deeper layer, understand the core belief, those are all really important. And at the same time, let's not take that perfectionistic approach to the healing, right? So, if you do get really activated, maybe you do get shut down for a day, it's okay to rest. Now, I don't want you to totally dismiss yourself and like completely disassociate. Give yourself some care, some attention, but it doesn't mean you need to go deep into those layers, do some crazy meditation, or understand the core belief and work with it. It probably means you need a little combination of rest and compassion and tell yourself, okay, we're going to look at this, but I'm going to give myself some time to rest. The thing is that our brains are wired for survival, right? So under stress, they default to old familiar patterns, even if those patterns are no longer serving us. It's important to recognize this because, again, our brain, our nervous system does not see something as good or bad. It just says something is dangerous or not, right? So when it sees something as dangerous, it's going to send you an old familiar pattern. And it's important to recognize this with compassion and remind yourself that you're doing your best with the tools that you have. You are. Even if you can't acknowledge it right now, even if you don't fully believe it, you are. So I want you to, when setbacks happen, when crashes happen, first and foremost, if you need it, give yourself rest, give yourself a big hug, do some breath, do some calming practices. And then when you feel like you're ready, you can ask yourself, what is this teaching me? And how can I support myself through it? Okay, so now that we understand what a setback is, what a crash is, let's explore how to build resilience to navigate them with grace and strength. If you've noticed by now, I've talked a lot about compassion whenever we have these times. It's really, really the best thing because probably what happens is you start to judge yourself or criticize yourself or think that you're a failure, but it's just not true. Like it's truly not true. So stop believing those thoughts. And so the first thing I want you to do is practice self compassion. I'm repeating this multiple times throughout this episode because I really want to drive it home. I want you to practice self compassion. Be kind to yourself during tough times. Speak to yourself as you would a friend. If you slip into old patterns, remind yourself, I'm learning and that's okay. Put your hand on your heart, give yourself a hug, breathe in deeply, take a bath, give yourself time to rest. Unconditional love when you rest. Lots of grace, lots of flexibility. And remember, speak to yourself as you would a friend. I also want you to celebrate small wins. Recognize the progress you've made, no matter how small, whether it's getting out of bed, journaling your feelings, or simply acknowledging your emotions. Every single step counts. Celebrate the wins from this point forward during this time. Also celebrate the wins leading up to this time. And sometimes this feels there might be a lot of resistance around this because you're in this state of like, oh, this sucks, nothing is working anymore, blah, 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 blah. Right? You're in that like negative mindset. But we need you to get into that positive mindset. Get your brain in that place that's always going to keep recognizing the wins, what is going well. Yeah. Part of this is reframing your perspective, which is the next tool. So instead of seeing setbacks as failures, try viewing them as opportunities to deepen your healing. Growth isn't about never struggling, it's about becoming more skilled at navigating challenges. Reframing and responding differently is huge because if you're in this negative mindset of like, I'm a failure, this sucks, this is never going to get better, you're reacting to something that's going on instead of responding, right? So we want you to respond with seeing this totally differently. So the reason why we say setbacks, the reason why we think of them as failures is because we've been taught, we've learned that we need to be in a straight line of trajectory of healing. Like we learn the skills, we practice them, it's perfect, we're good, we're done. That's what we've learned. That's what society teaches us we need to be doing. But that's not truth. Like that's not reality. That's not being human, right? So we need to start seeing time as non-linear. It just is. What happens in life, your journey, your progress, your year to year, the different phases of your life is just your life. There's no right or wrong. There's no like setbacks. There's no failure. It just is, right? So when you can reframe your perspective around it, oh my goodness, it opens up so much. Like, it opens up, exhale in your body. It opens up for so much growth and like gets rid of so much crappy energy and negativity. Yeah. When you do this during these times, what you're actually doing is expanding your window of tolerance. Because when you can be in this without completely dissociating and giving yourself grace and compassion and reframing your perspective, you're gradually exposing yourself to situations that push your boundaries in a manageable way because you're learning to manage them differently. So this might be practicing more grounding techniques, seeking support, or setting healthy boundaries, things like that. Lean on your support system throughout this time. You do not have to go through this alone. I'm going to say that again and again and again. You don't have to go through this alone. If it feels like you do, or you really truly don't have anyone else to reach out to us, whether you want to work with us, whether you want to join one of our groups, something like that. You do need a community. There's also plenty of other communities online for chronic illness, chronic pain, things like that. You need people around you, whether that's virtually, in person, whatever. Reach out to people that you feel you can reach out to that might be safe, or maybe a therapist or a coach that can offer perspective and encouragement. It's so important. You're not meant to do this alone. And actually, your nervous system is not meant to do this alone. We find safety in connection. We're literally wired to connect. So, in order to regulate your nervous system, you do need some safe connections. And I say this with the most compassion because I know sometimes some people really don't have support and they don't have people they can go to. And it can feel scary because you've had difficult experiences or relationships or trauma around this. So I have to say that like I'm not saying this is easy, but I am saying it's important. Okay. I hope by now you're learning how to respond differently if you're in it, if you're truly in it right now. And so I want to leave you with this, with a reflection exercise. Save this and come back to it if you can't do it right now. Save this for when you really need it. Um, I'm going to give you a few questions that you can lean into. First and foremost, whenever we're in this state, we always stop and we breathe. We do not believe our thoughts. We do not believe the negative place that we are in. So just take some deep breaths. And if you're in it right now, I want you to journal these prompts if it feels safe to do so. Again, if you need some time to just be, do that as well. But I want you to journal about what emotions are coming up for me. How did I respond to them? And then I also want you to write out, how do you respond to them? How can you respond in a loving and compassionate way? Maybe you do a like feel your feelings meditation and really feel them with compassion and acceptance. And then what can I learn from this experience? Right? Do you maybe need to learn what layer it's asking you to look at? What trigger, what belief it's activated? What do you need to learn from this experience? And last but not least, what small step can I take moving forward? So what can you take? What small step can you take to help yourself through this? And I say through and instead of over because we want you to move through it, right? Not try to push past it. And please remember that these places, these setbacks, these crashes, they don't define you. How you rise from them does. How you respond to where you are matters more than anything and actually helps you moving forward in any other time that you have is difficult. I also want to remind you that if you do want some support along this journey, myself and Liana are offering individual coaching spots for 2025, and we would love to support you if you feel a call to. So you can find the link below to schedule a time to see if it's a good fit, and we would really look forward to supporting you. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this affirmation. I trust my healing journey, even when it feels messy. Every step I take is bringing me closer to whole. All right. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Please share your reflections. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a positive 5-star review. It really helps me get this out to more people and share it with someone who might need it. Until next time, stay gentle with yourself and keep healing with grace.